Okay. Ready? All right, July 3rd, 9:17 a.m., Finance Committee. Amanda, could you call the roll?
Aaron.
Here.
Ballard.
Yes.
Geiger.
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. Call the meeting to order. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, I'll do it. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries. Do we have any public comments? None. We'll move on to Mr. Munyon and the liability insurance.
So the cyber policy is all ready to go with Vines tomorrow, so we're good on that. Everything else is kind of in review right now. They're going through the policy. I think some communications of looking into different areas of trying to find things to make sure everything's done right before it gets back on the docket for to go renewal for next year. So we're kind of in a low area, not a lot going on.
When do you think we'll have those figures available?
It's gonna be later. I mean, we can get an estimate because it doesn't renew until December, so that's, you know, it's usually only about 60 days out, but I can get an estimate of percentage. But right now, it's kind of all over the board. Rates are changing daily, and it's really hard to put a finger on it. But we took a significant increase last year, but that was because we reevaluated all the buildings and got them to where they should be. So that was that part of it. Plus, we had some increases for adding some cars and some things like that. So, but are you looking to get some definitive
We're having a
numbers?
bunch of hearings in end of July, so I
Okay.
would imagine like a month from now or.
I can reach out and
I'm
try
sure
and get
Bill
it.
will be asking you for something directional at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can reach out to them and say we need to get a generalized idea of an estimate of what they think the percentage is gonna be.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously it depends as well on what happens between now and then, if we have any claims or anything like that, you know,
Yeah.
or if we add things or something goes sideways from there,
Yeah.
then it'll be, but a general idea is what I'll ask for.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
How's the new office going?
Good. Busy.
You
know,
free stuff like suckers or something?
We had an open house, actually. It was actually pretty good. We had a little truck there, but, Harry's are wonderful people. We're really happy to be working with them and business has been good. Good competition. They were. We all work together now.
He was up there 3 times, I've never seen
I know, I've been out.
Okay, Susie's not here, so
Susie's not here, but she did report that she doesn't have an update on the medical loss ratio for this month, so she'll get that to us when she, when that report generates.
okay. And
Bernie will be at the August 8th meeting.
okay. And so then we'll move to department head reports. I guess Sheriff will let you have the floor. Not yet? You're not ready? I can go to everybody else.
Go to everybody else. I have to get back.
Great.
Just, we received notification that there is, a new proposed TIF district in Gilman, so that will have an effect on taxes for 23 years, just keep that in mind. Or longer, depending on if they extend it and whatnot. It hasn't been put into place, but it's going to be, I'm sure. Also, just have been working on budget numbers as far as, we've been doing other stuff, but
Well, tax collection will be, first installment's due next, 12th of July. So we're working on that. We got a lot of people coming in, paying the taxes. We had some hiccups with the mail. People still not getting their bills, and I do not know what to do about that, but if there's a way we can email people their stuff, I would prefer that, but state statute says we have to mail everybody bills, but otherwise, everything's going forward pretty good, so. I do have another person in my office helping us this summer to try and help us catch up, so we're staying on track, so.
Yep.
Basically from tax bills going out. Our office is as busy as ever. I won't bore you with everything that I spoke about, the sales ratio study and all of that. Listen to my spiel from the tax committee meeting. And other than that, just working on budget numbers.
It was a nice spiel.
All right, Sheriff, you're on.
We received a couple of grants. One, we're in the process of rebuilding the auxiliary police program. That's the changes that Myron and I talked about, liability-wise, so we changed that. There never had been a funding for the uniforms. So if you were an auxiliary deputy, you pretty much just paid for your uniform. So I was able to get $7,500 for uniforms. We did get the Mary Helen Roberts grant for new laptops for the investigators. So I was able to get those. Adam got those set up yesterday. And we'll have a little bit of money left over to put into towards the MDC for one of the squads. So we were able to take 3 of the MDCs that the investigators have. Those are the ones that have the Verizon air cards that the deputies use in the cars, and reallocate those to patrol for some of the computers that were aging and were starting to not work. So that was a good use of those computers.
How does this auxiliary thing, what is that actually?
I mean, it's basically the fair.
Yeah.
It used to be, they would carry guns and they would go through the 40-hour firearms. They still can, but Myron and I talked about that, and it's quite the liability to have, say you take
Well, that's what I was kind of hoping for. I was hoping this was an opportunity to get a badge and a gun.
It used to be. But I just think that there's too much liability. So we're kind of redoing that to where it's gonna be more of a traffic, search and rescue, extra people, extra eyes kind of thing. So we put out applications through the ICLEA a couple months ago, and it's been kind of slow. It was Charlie. Nobody grab it? No? Okay. Okay. Other than that,
He's my age.
we're looking ahead towards the budget of leasing vehicles, purchasing vehicles. Scott and I have been working, talked to Jill quite a bit over the last month. I think Scott's got some honed in numbers, so hopefully we can look at that. There is windows or opportunity to order. I don't know when those windows are. Scott would be more on that, but if we did decide to do any leasing options, that could be decided prior to the budget being decided, and that would be for those windows for direct vehicles. So if you miss that, then you miss out for the 2025 order, and you'd be ordering 25 for 26. So with that, let's not.
That's a good segue. Just to add some timeline color into what is probably certainly the most cost-effective way to acquire vehicles for the Sheriff's Department, and that's factory ordering directly from the manufacturer. There are some advantages there. One, we'll spec the vehicles out exactly how the Sheriff Department wants them. There are certainly a variety of different engine types, added options that if you buy from a dealer, they're speccing those vehicles out how they want them, and their biggest priority is profit. So the model year 2025 Ford Utility Police Interceptor, which is the best fit based off the last 4 months of our conversations for the Sheriff's Department, just based off cost, engine type, and what seems to be the preferred vehicle for the deputies. Those orders have been open for ordering since February. So the order banks probably won't be open for another 30 days or so. So to Sheriff's point, to get approval to place an order through Ford in the July board meeting would be important. Those vehicles, as far as timeline to build, they aren't going to be built and upfit and delivered until probably February of 2025. Part of our program is our customers don't pay for the vehicle until it's delivered. So while that vehicle is being built by Ford, then sent to the upfitter to be spec'd out, you're not paying for that vehicle. Once it's delivered to the county, road ready, that's when you would start paying for the vehicle.
Okay.
Part of our program, it's obviously leasing. Funding vehicles is completely up to the county. We have counties that use our leasing method in order to improve some cash flow. And each year we'll go through a deep plan into evaluating the current fleet for the sheriff's department and determining which vehicles make the most sense to replace based off of their age, mileage, and their resale value. And what I've put together for the county is a really good plan to stay within the budget and replace the 3 oldest vehicles and allow the sheriff's department to grow by 1 vehicle. And I was hoping to connect to the monitor here to kind of walk you through that plan. If you guys want to give me 2 minutes to try to get that up on the board. So bear with me just a moment. So I can pull this guy out here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoots up there. Try to wirelessly connect really quick. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Do you know which Wi-Fi network the TV is connected to?
I don't know. Might be to the county, but they're not gonna get excited about.
Understood.
Hook in.
Try this one more time.
Like I said, I usually use a HDMI cable.
Have to pivot here, guys. I'll come over to the table and share with what you guys.
And you just don't have hard copies of what you're trying to.
It's a spreadsheet. It would be it's harder to print, but I can kind of walk through high level. So the first year, what we're proposing is, as I mentioned, replacing the 3 oldest vehicles and adding 1 additional growth vehicle into the sheriff's department's fleet. Of those vehicles, our funding method will allow us to lease that vehicle. So instead of paying cash today, where as the sheriff's county does today, instead of outlaying $236,000 to pay cash for 4 vehicles, we would be able to lease those vehicles with a total budget of $63,000. And that funding method is essentially a finance, and our lease payment is based off of 2 components. It's based off of the Sourcewell purchasing co-op pricing agreement that we have, and that is based off of the interest rate and the management fee. The interest rate is based off the 3-year treasury bill plus 325 basis points. Then we have a management fee. We're going to be looking at this as a strategic partnership. So we're going to be managing the fleet, helping the sheriff's department not only select the right vehicle, but also managing the existing vehicles through our maintenance program. That management fee is 0.10 of the delivered cost of that vehicle. So in all, the total lease payment for that vehicle. Go ahead.
10%, you're saying 10%?
No, 0.10%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So for, a $50,000 squad car, roughly, $50 a month for the management fee. The maintenance program is a bill back program where we're monitoring the repairs for all the vehicles that are under that program. We have a team of AFC certified technicians that are reviewing that work, making sure it's the right work at the right time, and billing that back to you guys so you have a historical history of what's getting done on these vehicles.
So go to your facilities to do this?
No, actually, it would be the dealerships.
So that's your facility then, because we don't take ours to the dealership always.
Correct. For the maintenance, the Warrenable work, all the maintenance facilities, those would get done at those repair facilities.
So we can use local
Well, I'm assuming they're under warranty.
oil change.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the one.
That's what,
Thank
when I
you.
started builds, it's quite a bit of it is stuff like that.
Non-warranty.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking,
There are vendors that are not dealers that are a part of our network. So those can go to any preferred vendor that's within our network. Big picture, the shared goal between myself, Enterprise, and the Sheriff's Department is to lower the total cost of ownership across the entire fleet of vehicles. Obviously, taking an aged fleet today, where there are roughly 8 vehicles that are over 120,000 miles on their odometer, to be able to make a big impact on that in the first year of the partnership and put in newer vehicles that are going to be significantly cheaper to maintain, and also give you guys an improved fuel efficiency in those vehicles. The Ford EcoBoost engine that we'd be getting in these Ford Utility Police Interceptors that would come into the fleet next year are going to see probably around 4 miles per gallon improvement from the aged vehicles and some of the Tahoes that we replace. Back to the analysis. Thank you again, Sheriff, for printing that off. My apologies for the not being able to connect to the monitor. If you can look at the top chart. The top chart is meant to show what the county is doing today as far as their funding method, and that's paying cash for vehicles. You see the first column in 2025, the fleet today is 22 total vehicles. Like we discussed, we'd want to replace the 3 oldest vehicles and add 1 additional vehicle into the fleet. Of those 3 vehicles, because of their age and odometer readings, there's not a lot of value in those vehicles. The average equity in those 3 vehicles is about $3,000. So total resale equity replacing the 3 oldest vehicles, about $9,000. Going down into the cost components of acquiring the vehicles, the estimated cost for a 2025 police interceptor with upfit is about $58,000. As I mentioned, to go out and buy 4 of those cash, you're looking at $232,000. The model then shows, years 2026 and beyond, all the way out to 2030. As I mentioned, this is meant to be a conceptual model. Every year, we will sit down and meet with the county, with the Sheriff's Department, and evaluate which vehicles make the most sense to replace, what the budget is for that year, and determine what our course of action is for not only replacement, but growth as we continue to partner with the Sheriff's Department. Going down to the enterprise plan, if we mirror the same exact growth and replacement plan in 2025, using the same resale equity of $9,000 for the 3 vehicles that we're selling, and then going into the vehicle cost components with Enterprise, we do require a down payment for any aftermarket on the vehicle that's over $10,000. So that $30,400 would be half of that aftermarket as a down payment. The rest of the vehicle we would finance through our lease, and your lease payment would be around $1,200 a month. That, again, is including the payment on interest and our management fee. So your annual lease payment for 2025 Utility Interceptor is, with current interest rates as of this morning, $15,800. So the annual lease payments probably a little bit lower than the chart that was printed. As of today, those annual lease payments would be $63,218, giving us a year one capital budget to execute this plan of $84,000, which would be a savings in cash flow of $138,000 instead of paying cash for those vehicles.
I think the problem that I think Sheriff gave something similar to this. I'm sure the numbers are slightly different, updated, whatever. But I think the thing, I know several of us, we talked about last month when we kind of looked at something similar to this, was that obviously in the first couple of years there, well, yeah, we're spending a lot less money.
Mhm.
I think at least some of us, I know Doug and I talked about this, but mentioned it last month, is the long term of this. I guess the thing that worries me the most isn't the short term. I see the value in it, is that I guess it depends where you draw the line in the sand to compare the top option A versus option B, because the last 3-4 years there in this 8-year plan look horrible, quite frankly, that we're spending $100,000+ more each year than what we would under the plan up there. So it's kind of like, well, we're saving money in the short term, but then long term, if that trend continues, which I presume year 9, year 10, 15, whatever, if we're spending $100,000 more, well, okay, we save money today, but we're going to be spending a lot more money into the future. I think that was kind of our biggest concern. So if we, yes, for this given time period, why 8 years? I don't know, but maybe there's a reason for that. But yeah, okay, well, it doesn't look too bad, but the last 3-4 years look horrible. And so is that continue then? That in year 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that we're spending $100,000 more a year? Well, if that's the case, well, then it's not so attractive, right? And I guess the same thing could be said if we stopped it after year 5. Well, this looks really good, but even better. But are we saving money today to, lack of better language, screw ourselves in the long run? That's what my concern would be. I guess, I think that's the general concern. If
You
I,
have to add this figure every year, keep adding that figure forever, because you're gonna be leasing up to now, sooner or later, 20-some cars a year.
it seems like in the short term, it's a good thing, but in the long term, it doesn't look so good. And maybe I'm missing.
No, you're not.
We're missing some part of that, but I think that's the fear, is that, okay, yeah, this sounds great because we always have a tight budget, that we're $130,000 and favorable this year, but 5 years from now, we've just kicked the problem down the road and we're really not any better off, even though over this time period, yes, it's a net better, but in the long run, are we worse off? I think that's the work. That's the
I'm glad you
worry,
bring that
so
up.
to speak.
That's a fair concern, and go ahead. Sorry.
Does this have to be covered with growth? I mean, how long do we need one car a year more?
The one car a year is shown for the next 3 years.
For, 3
And
4 years.
You're gonna have a growth in population unless the crime rate goes up. I'm sure it.
Well, I think that's for a 4-year period, but nonetheless.
To your question, we're showing one additional growth vehicle for the next 3 years. And why 3 years is the goal would be to get one squad for every officer. And a couple of reasons behind that. 2 is you're no longer having to share vehicles between 2 patrol officers, which is putting up that annual mileage very high, which is increasing maintenance, increasing fuel, and then also you're losing resale value because of how much more quickly that vehicle is depreciating in value because of the increased annual mileage.
Sure.
The other part of this analysis, which doesn't do the enterprise side any favors, is we're showing what interest rates are right now in 2025 and assuming that they're going to stay the same for the next 5-6 years. I think we all know that is a worst case scenario. And that's why I showed it as it was, is we don't want to give ourselves any added advantage with something we don't know. And every year, we're going to be sitting back down, planning and addressing every year to decide what to do for replacement. All the while, we're monitoring that maintenance for you, and we're showing how is the enterprise program, you're paying us a management fee, how is the enterprise program saving us money on the operational side of running a fleet of 22, 23, 24, as the fleet grows, how are we driving that number down? And the whole plan is to stay to a shorter cycle, to replace vehicles after 5 years, once we start getting the older vehicles out of the fleet. That's going to shift buckets, right? So yes, that number goes up in the capital budget, but as we're running vehicles that are 5 years and younger, the cost for maintenance is going to drive down. The cost for fuel is going to drive down. So it's going to give the county a more predictable budget, a more controllable budget on the operational side of the fleet. On top of that, when we get into the years where we're starting to replace younger vehicles, which likely won't happen until we get to 2028 and beyond, the resale value in those vehicles is going to be significantly higher than the $3,000 per vehicle that we're replacing in the first year. That in itself is our value proposition, is pull vehicles for the.
How many like cars do we have left? I mean, wasn't this, I mean, the whole argument going to SUVs and things was the value of them at the end of it. I mean, how many actual cars are we to?
There are 2 Impalas.
Yeah.
One is the one we bought from Cessna, and then one is one that we've had, I think it's a 2016. And that's still on the road. But when you sell that, you're gonna get $1,800.
Right.
You know, when we sell one of our first Tahoes, we're gonna get, $12,000.
But he's got to figure 3,000.
No, the 3,000 is the first year if we're replacing those 3 oldest vehicles, which would be those Impalas and one aged, I believe it's a Ford Utility Interceptor that's part of that year 1 plan.
Second year, looks like it's, I can hardly read this, $12,000.
Yep, so again, yep,
So
year 2.
that you're not getting in the SUVs in year 2. Year 3 is $19,000, so you're currently not getting any Tahoes in year 3. That's 9 vehicles into the dating game. And but how many miles do you approximately does a average deputy put on a car a year?
It was. It said it was like 2,400 miles per month per driver.
I mean, but yeah, that's what I'm just saying, per person, singular, so that's 28,000 a year roughly. Yeah, okay, that helps, thank you.
That would include the idle miles. Where Cincinnati's.
Right, but the value is affected by your odometer, so like, yeah.
Engine hours are a component of that, and that's certainly something that's evaluated when selling a vehicle. So that's a very good point, Tom. When we start to get into the replacement where we're selling vehicles at the right time, by replacing 3 a year, we're not going to get to that until probably 2028 or 2029. If we have a more aggressive approach, we'll certainly get to those increased resale values sooner. But at the same time, what I want to make sure we're concentrating on is what makes the most sense within 2025's vehicle budget for the Sheriff's Department. The rest of this model is purely conceptual, and we will determine what we do 2026 and beyond, and it'll be a collaborative effort between enterprise and the Sheriff's Department. Any additional questions?
I guess when we do if you were to do these leases,
Correct.
what if we decide we don't want to do anything? I mean, so this is, I think we talked about this a little bit last month, is that there's been times where, yep, okay, we do 3 cars or we do whatever, and there's been times where the budget's, things aren't good, and I guess when you own them, we're only doing 1 this year, or we're only doing 2 this year, or, things like that have had to happen in the past. I guess, are these, you can extend the lease then, I guess, and just continue on with that?
Yes. The lease is based off, we're recommending a 48-month term just based off of the annual mileage being around 20. Hopefully we'll get it down to 25,000 by adding, additional vehicles into the fleet. That 4-year lease term doesn't necessarily have to be when we replace it. If it doesn't fit into the budget to replace that vehicle that year, we would just extend that vehicle for another year. And, if the vehicle's paid off, we would just continue to manage it on the county's behalf, and we would evaluate whether or not it makes sense to replace it for the next year if that fits within the budget. And at any point, if the county decides this isn't working out for us, you could at any time, whether it's 12 months into the lease or 36 months into the lease, pay off whatever the remaining balance is on that vehicle, and then we would issue title back to Iroquois County. Or sell it on your behalf, and if it's an equitable position, that equity, of course, is the county's at any time throughout the partnership. I hope that addressed your question.
Yeah.
But really, the lease term is meant to act as a trigger point to assess that vehicle to whether or not we should replace it, keep running it, and keep it on a holding pattern that's going to be the most cost-effective total cost of ownership for the sheriff's department.
What is so like when we get into year 5, what is happening? Why 8 vehicles that year? I mean, so there's this big 8 and 6 and 6. What's driving that?
The 8 is driving that because we're getting to a point where we're replacing a large number of vehicles that the county replaced on their own last year.
We've never done 8 in a year.
That was when we didn't get them in 21, 22, and then we got the big influx in 23 because of the pandemic.
So part of that is looking out, right? Forecasting for the potential replacement in that year. So in year 5, as you're referring to, there's going to be 8 vehicles that are probably still worth some value and that we believe that they should be replaced before they start to cost the county more money in maintenance, because they're going to be higher on the odometers and there's just going to be an added risk to continuing to run those vehicles. So great question. That's where that 8 came from, is that, there is that big model year 2023 that will be coming down the pipe to assess whether or not we should replace those vehicles.
Your line designation total annual capital budget is actually not, that's the cost of the lease, correct? The yearly cost of the lease?
Yep, correct.
So that would be in a budget, it's the cost of the lease. So, okay.
Cost of the lease versus the
So
cost
the cash. Like you were saying earlier, it's $402,000 in year 5 that we're gonna come up with to cover all the lease obligations that we have. Correct?
That's what that's showing, yes.
Well, I mean, that's, what it is, okay. And it's gonna, slowly creep up in today's interest rate.
Yes, using, roughly 8% as the interest, which as we know, should come down. It's already come down about 1% since we began this conversation. And again, what we do year in and year out will always be collaborative. It's always going to be the county's decision on what we continue to add into the program.
Given that the interest rate, I mean, I get the whole notion that the interest rates make that look bad. Can you look backwards and say, okay, under yours, like, let's. I mean, we're assuming a lot of stuff into the future, so like, what would it have looked like over the last 8 years had we done this? You know, I guess.
I don't think that'd be fair to put in front of you guys. It's just,
Well, it has to be. What, under typical financial conditions of interest rates that we've had for how many years, what would it be? I guess, so if you throw in.
So I guess if we would have if we were to replace the same number of cars using a lease system versus the way we've been doing it, how much money would we have saved? I mean, we should
Should provided over the last couple of years of how much we've spent through the public safety tax on vehicles. You got that, I didn't, I have to look back to see how much money we've spent.
Because I think your point is valid, that like hopefully interest rates aren't this high 5, 6, 7, 8 years out.
So what happens if 3%? What's our cost gonna be at 3%?
I can pick on that for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know
Because that might dramatically change that in those
Yeah.
outer years,
Sure.
where it doesn't look so horrible.
Great point. And the other point that I think is important to discuss is if there are years where, the county would rather, pay cash through the program for vehicles, you're not married to leasing through our program forever. It's certainly a cash flow tool, especially where we sit today, in order to get these older vehicles out of the fleet without having to outlay that much capital. You don't always have to lease. And, you could also pay more money down to drive down, the payment on interest. That's always strategies that we're going to be able to bring to your attention and plan on going forward throughout the partnership.
looks like, here in, from a budget I can figure out from a year ago, we bought 3 vehicles and budgeted $150,000. And installation and stuff, it was $8,200.
That was some equipment that we had already purchased from the year before, so we already had the equipment to put in the vehicles. So, so it'd be 150, we're looking at about, $8,000, $9,000 per vehicle to outfit.
Right, so we're 174, okay, for 3 vehicles, and then we own them. We just have to maintain them, but I don't think, don't have maintenance costs built in your spreadsheet, correct?
Mhm.
You
But
do
we
have
gotta
that,
maintain, we gotta maintain whether we own them or not.
that's what I meant, so that,
That was.
so that is
Well,
Yeah.
apples to apples, so.
Yeah, the
3
advantage,
years, it costs us $174,000 for 3 if we choose to, and we own them. Versus. And so in year 5 or 6 or 7, it's, if we choose to buy 3 cars, it's whatever today's prices are, but. It looks like it's less than the $400,000.
well, you're comparing 3 vehicles to 19. If we're comparing apples to apples, you're comparing 170,000 to what we would be able to do with 4 for 63,000. And
I guess if you added up the bottom line and added up for 10 years, how much money do we spend? And then if you say, I'm gonna buy 3 vehicles every year, or whatever number it is, for 10 years, how much we're gonna spend every year? And that would help compare apples and apples.
That would be the top row here.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring glasses and I can't really read that, so I won't agree with you.
I've got glasses and I can't even read it.
Doug, I can put that together. I mean, if you look at just using 5 years, if you did 3 vehicles a year for 5 years,
Yeah, what
nine, this is cash. If you guys paid cash for vehicles for the next 5 years, 3 per year,
Right.
$924,000.
That's this $174,000 a year, you're saying?
That's using a $58,000 upfit police vehicle times 3 over the course of 5 years. Adding in the potential resale value as well. So I'm not eliminating the benefit of selling the vehicles that be replaced. Now, if we did 3 per year on the lease side, you're at $749,534.
What if you get a 10-year? Like we asked.
I don't have that in front of me. I can certainly run the numbers for you and email that out and get that out to you guys. That's not a problem. What I think is the most important thing is trying to help the sheriff's department for 2025. You know, the years beyond will be a planning and collaborative partnership. And the county's always going to be able to decide what they want to be able to do. We're going to give you guys as much analysis and cost breakdowns on everything that goes into the program. The fuel will be through WEX, which you guys are already doing today, so we'll be able to take a look at what the county's paying on fuel. How are we doing on driving down maintenance after the first year of the partnership? How well did we do when we sold vehicles on your behalf? And then next year, we'll evaluate the health of the fleet, determine which vehicles we believe make sense to replace, and the county will then get to decide what fits within your budget and fits within your decision. I like these 5-10-year plans, but in reality, those plans won't come to fruition until we get to those years. And, you're never forced to replace anything that, you guys don't want to replace. The cash flow benefit of this lease is going to allow us to drive down the overall age of the fleet and stay to a shorter cycle and really get the benefit of selling vehicles. Once we start replacing lease vehicles through the program, we're going to be able to start selling vehicles while they're actually holding some value, and use that as essentially a down payment to apply towards that year's vehicle budget. And that's big picture of why this program is beneficial and why I believe in it and why, we've invested, almost 4 months in this. It works. And, taking that model and using the data and analytics to make the right decisions over the course of the time is in the best interest of all our government partners, and I really do believe in it.
But I mean, if I just look at, and maybe these numbers don't match, but here what Sheriff you gave us today, your sheet. So cost of a lease vehicle per year, I assume we're comparing apples and apples here on what we're getting, is $23,000 per year. And if we buy it, it's $58,000, right? I mean, but if you do that over a 4-year period, a 48-month period, that lease vehicle is gonna cost us $23,000, call it, times 4 is $92,000 for the same one that's gonna cost us $58,000 today.
Right.
I mean, and I get there's interest in whatever, but I mean, from a maintaining it perspective, they're both gonna cost us the same thing, right? I mean, if we stay on the same theoretical rotation over that 4-year period, we're still gonna put tires, we're still gonna put fuel in the same vehicle. One costs us 58 today, and the other one costs us 92 over the same amount of time. I get like, okay, we spread that out over those 4 years rather than all up front, but in the long run, you're still
$40,000 more on a vehicle over 4 years.
It's what it kind of, and I get there's the interest component of that without doing the math out of that, but
It also looks like, but I've got the fine print now in front of me, that on the totals, at the end of your sheet, it says that if we buy them, it's 2.352 million. And if we go through leasing, it's 2.539, so it's $200,000 in excess more at the end of this 8-year plan that we've paid out. It looks like, if I'm reading this right. So,
I just feel like it saves, it theoretically, yes, gives us cash flow. It's a cash flow advantage in the few years, but in the long run,
it's,
I guess if we're not just completely broke and can't afford to buy the thing, I don't see like what the long-term advantage is on the surface. Like, because, I mean, it's like paying $92,000 for $58,000 vehicle.
I think in the shorter term, it would get us a vehicle for $22,000. Yeah, we would end up paying that over 4 years. So the short term is good.
But yeah, but you're paying 92 for a 58, you know, like
right.
I'm not saying there aren't situations with maybe interest rates and things like that where that's not better, but like in the long run, it doesn't seem better to me.
I wonder if the leasing also includes additional costs for outfitting the new vehicles as well as increasing.
Well, I assume that number is
all in
considered,
there.
is in consideration of that.
Rates are gonna be higher. Costs more money to insure a brand new vehicle than it does an older one.
Well, but
That's
yes,
smart.
but I think the point is that if you're doing the same thing, I mean, if you're.
What about his management fee? That's another $15,600 a year.
Well, I think that's in this $23,000
Correct.
number, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, I think you're comparing apples to apples. The point is,
I'm just asking if it is because it doesn't say it does.
yeah, well, I assume that's,
Yeah,
that has all that in there, right?
It's all in there.
I think personally.
Quite frankly, but my thing, sorry, just one thing was the idea of buying the used vehicle with 30,000 miles for $35,000, that looks like the most appealing out of all of them. To me, I mean, but go ahead.
To me, I think one of the things that really would help us to be able to identify the situation more accurately is if we get a way of determining How much does it cost for each mile that the vehicle is driven?
Should be able to do that.
I mean, you
Yeah.
have all kinds of insurance companies and others that, and
And-
government, they have ways of figuring out the
And
cost per mile. Why can't we do the same in one method and the other? That's really the bottom line, isn't it? Mr. Parkinson came here that day, he asked me, what would it take? And I told him, I said, tell me what it's gonna cost per mile for your method versus our existing method. And I still haven't seen anything even close.
I think Doug he's got a spreadsheet of costs. I didn't get to work with him or see it, but I thought he has one on maintenance costs and this and that on each vehicle, doesn't he? So we've been keeping that?
Yes, we've been adding all the maintenance records into our new system. Previously, it was kept in a binder, so per vehicle, he'd have to go through and add all the maintenance records for that vehicle.
I'd be happy to work with him to come up with what our cost is per mile up to this point.
And analyzing acres relative to these vehicles, to me, that's the key.
And that's precisely what we do through our maintenance
Using the
program.
miles on the vehicle is one of the main indicators of when it's time to get a new one.
You could have a lemon that was 2 years old that you need to get rid of over the one that's 4 years old that isn't as costly per mile. Agree.
I'm not saying we shouldn't know those numbers, I think we should. But my point is that unless I'm missing something here. Like, you could have 11, whether it's leased or it's
Agreed.
or we own it, that's not gonna change that in our fuel mileage. I guess if you're implementing the same thing where we're buying on the same pattern or versus leasing it on the same pattern, paying 92 for one that costs 60, and I get there's a time value of money and interest and all that over that 4-year period, but like,
I think this
makes
is.
my head hurt. Like,
What
how-
I think is like, what's the value of the house?
Yeah.
What's it sold for previously is one technique, what would it cost to rebuild it is another
Sure.
one, and what's comparable work? What we're talking about is just another
Yeah, no, for
evaluation
sure.
thing.
I
The other
think it's
two
good
is,
to know.
I don't know, if you get a lemon 2 years into it, can you get rid of it under a lease or what happens?
Well, we would file that claim through the manufacturer, and yes, you would get,
Well, no, I'm just saying is, if we own it, we have the right to take it to the hog market and get rid of it whenever if it proves to be expensive to use, for whatever reason.
you wouldn't need to take it to the auction if you were working with us. We would file a claim through Ford, and they would, you know, you would get
Maybe.
I mean, that's exactly what we do on the 1.5 million vehicles that we run. Is we work with all the manufacturers, and that if that situation did come up,
Well, I use the word lemon, but I'm not saying it's a lemon law, I'm just saying if
Got
we find something that just costs us too much money, we
Sure.
get rid of it.
and that's what we would do. We've been working through our maintenance program because we're monitoring all those repairs. We're able to not only track if is it costing you too much to maintain, maybe there's one specific maintenance item that happens after it's over warranty, and it doesn't make sense to put $8,000 into a 4-year-old vehicle. Let's go out and replace it with a new one, sell it for its value as is. That's something we do frequently for all of our customers. And the cost per mile that you're talking about is exactly what we're going to be showing you throughout the partnership. Because we're tracking all that maintenance for both the existing vehicles and the new vehicles through the program, we'll be able to break that cost down and show the county what that cost per mile is. And you can even do it by mileage band. We have this many vehicles that are over 80,000 miles. What's our cost per mile on these vehicles? What's our cost per mile on anything between 80 and 50,000? That's part of the analysis and the planning that we do with our partners. So it's exactly what we're going to be doing throughout the course of the strategic partnership. It goes well beyond just, you know, financing and sourcing vehicles for our clients.
Like Michael was talking about, buying the used vehicles, would we kind of ease more into the lease and buy some used vehicles and maybe lease 1 per year or 2 per year for the first couple of years? Would that be an option? And I know you're traditionally we pretty much got $150,000 per year for vehicles. You know, and that would keep that within that range.
Discuss, I guess, the budget and too, you know. See where we're at, or what we can afford. But it just looks like this is a more expensive alternative in 5 years out. It might be some combination.
I truly believe it's only going to be more expensive if the county is able to maintain the same discipline replacement cycle that we'd be able to help and stay on top of. If they are, yeah, maybe.
We're on that track. COVID knocked us out, correct? So, I mean, we should be able to budget here and be able to replace cars at a timely manner. Probably you had struggles in the COVID years of furnishing cars because.
No one had a silver bullet for that.
Right, so I mean,
But
we're behind because of that situation, but it's not our normal practice.
if you were to stay on a three-year cycle for another, and stay consistent to a 3-year cycle, your holding pattern would be 7.5 years. That's why my model is showing that you have that 8 coming up down the line, is because if you keep replacing 3 vehicles per year, every year, there's no way you're going to be able to drive down that holding pattern on the vehicles.
I just threw that number out.
Okay. Well, it really is what
For our budget, here in a couple weeks.
you were spot on though. That's exactly what the sheriff's county, the sheriff's department's doing today as far as the average annual acquisitions. It's 3 per year. And that is the biggest picture in why people work with us, is because we use data analytics and we sit down and try to take that holding pattern and drive it down to a lower holding pattern that aligns with annual mileage and the vehicle's application. And if we stay on 3 per year, we'll never get there. And we'll continue to have the same operational budget when it comes to fuel and maintenance, and never actually get to the point where we're selling these vehicles while they hold a stronger resale value.
I think some of it to actually understand that, and I get that's not your problem, but or I'm not saying that's your issue and that's what the value you guys want to bring. But as a county, it sounds like we're working towards that, but like, I guess we don't even fully understand this whole, what you guys were talking about, what is our cost and how incrementally high has it gotten when we hold these vehicles longer and stuff like that. And I'm not blaming anybody, it's just we're not there and we don't understand that. And I get that that's something you want to bring to the table, but all the information, theory, we have it, we just don't have a good way of looking at it, right? Or haven't had a good way of looking at it.
We never really thought about doing a cost per mile. And, 5 years ago, we never thought, oh, we should start tracking this.
We might find that drivers are this one driver looks like his cost per mile is a lot more. I don't know yet why, but.
We can't really say that because we've got 2 people in one vehicle,
only on 2 or 3 occasions.
Right.
Most everybody else is singular. So you might find that maybe what we ask him to do on patrol doesn't make sense. Or maybe he's going to the donuts in Melford instead of getting them close by in Clifton, But I mean, it's all gonna come to light.
Right.
So, sure.
You can try to track every anything, but
No, we just need a cost of that. So I mean, there's, your fuel, your maintenance. Insurance comes into play. They should be able to give us an itemization. Because John's right, you buy a new car, you're gonna have, quite a bit more insurance than something that's 2 or 3 years old. And we're not trying to micromanage, it's just to understand that it's such a costly expense for the county to put the cars out there.
Right.
We just need to get the most bang for our buck, because you don't start printing money, right? Your office doesn't print money?
No, I think Kurt's does.
All right, as far as moving forward, I mean, to make a decision on this next Tuesday, I think that's a fantasy world. At this point, I mean, just being realistic, I mean, whether we want to or don't want to, I just don't know how we get to that point. Because we've never, I guess, our world works, I mean, everything pretty much is made from a budgetary decision perspective. And haven't hardly begun that process. I mean, it's good that this is part of the conversation, but I guess that's over the next couple months here is when that really takes place. As far as, Ford's deadlines and all those kind of things,
Realistically, what would take private 3-4 months to do takes us a year. Basically. Just because of the process.
and as far as any cars, I guess, whether they're bought or leased, I mean, I think it's a horrible precedent to get into, to like start doing it out of the budget process. Like, I mean, that's just not sustainable, like that we're gonna approve, oh yeah, we'll get 3 cars, whether it's leased, whether they're bought in July, when our whole budget process, I mean, these are big ticket items in the budget process, and to circumvent the whole budget process
I think it's
doesn't make sense.
It's a unique year in that the model year opened up way sooner than it typically does. So to your point, yes, to have it be aligned with
Right.
when you guys begin your budget conversations isn't ideal. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have other options as far as, getting them either a different acquisition avenue or going to a GM, a Blazer police vehicle. There's certainly other options.
You found us a person who can outfit our car that's also a Ford dealer, correct?
Yeah, Morrow Brothers.
Yeah, I would bet that they have cars slotted that they purchased. In the truck side of things, that's how they do stuff. If you're gonna have a bed manufacturer, then you slot trucks with International or whoever, and you got a constant flow. So I assume after our meetings and budget, get that figured out, then, that'd be an alternative to see what they got. Or you can check now to see if they got stuff available down the road.
And we checked with Morrow Brothers, we checked the used market, the Asian Motors, whatever's that class,
But they have cars available, right? Morrow Brothers?
yes.
Right. So we
Yes,
can,
I mean, I don't know that,
we can find.
no matter what direction we go, this is a problem. I mean, it's just, we gotta work within the budgetary process, otherwise the budget is a pointless. If we're gonna circumvent it, then we might as well circumvent it on everything, that it doesn't really, it really can't work that way, I mean,
And just to bring you all the
Yeah.
information, I started.
no, this is good,
I
yeah,
started this 4 months ago.
sure,
I mean, and I would hope you guys would appreciate that.
No, yes.
And try to be proactive on this.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
At the 9th hour, I
Right.
need.
No, I don't think it's,
No.
that's not what I'm trying to say, I think that is great, and that is good, it's just,
It's a.
either way, it needs to happen, and it needs to be proactive, and it's appreciated, but like, there's no way the county's gonna approve this in July. I mean, otherwise, it's just, I mean, I don't see how that could happen. Even. If it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget, and the budget process, unless we wanna move the budget process forward for everything, I don't know how we're gonna one-off approve budgetary items. I just don't know how that's gonna work ever, like, that being said, like, talking about it proactively ahead of time so that it can get approved in that process is obviously ideal, because doing it at the last minute, there's no way that that's ever gonna happen either, I mean, I think, but,
If you came up with numbers with a less percent, what's your interest rate now, you said?
I believe 3-year T-bill
So,
325, I think it's 7.8.
that's what you're calculating, or that's what you're saying the interest rate is today?
That's what it is today.
Let's bring it down to 4, 3.5, and just see how these numbers change, is all I'm interested in.
Sure.
If they were cut in half, then that's significant. And if they were reduced by 10%,
And a
then
And a cent per mile.
do what?
Run a cents per mile analysis on what it would look.
Just, even if you take this sheet and you figured it at 3.5.
Yes, yeah, I was saying that I can definitely do, and then we can also,
Yeah.
the other ask was to, what does this look like if we're using the enterprise model, the enterprise.
When interest rates are better, do you do like fixed rates and stuff like that?
So the interest rate
leases?
is,
Obviously, you probably
yes.
want to do that now.
well, the interest rate's always fixed.
Okay,
The interest rate, and the interest rate doesn't lock in until the vehicle is delivered.
Okay.
So if that vehicle, we order it, it gets built, it gets upfit, it delivers in February, whatever that interest rate is in February, that's what's locked in on that lease.
For the 4 years.
Correct.
Okay,
do we
so-
have an option to leave it variable?
So that means if we buy some this year and the interest rates fall down after February, then we're still held to that higher
Correct.
lease payment for 4 years.
And the other advantage is, you go out and buy that vehicle today, that same period of time, the lead time to build and outfit that vehicle, you guys paid cash for it. There's no interim interest. So you guys aren't paying for anything for that vehicle until it's actually road ready, until it can go out on a patrol.
Okay. Well, maybe if you could get us that information, just to have something to look at, like from a theoretical perspective. I get it's not real, but like, I think that does make your numbers, obviously, it makes it look worse, like you obviously wouldn't have said.
And I hope you guys appreciate it. These are meant to be very conservative, especially on the resale side too. I mean, even when we're looking at selling your vehicles, and then even when we start to go in to replace some of our own vehicles, as we cycle them after 5 years, very conservative numbers. We don't want to show you something that isn't going to be obtainable. The sight seeing, using, what our resale average is off PVC for squad cards, given that annual mileage and that, that holding pattern. But your requests are, I can certainly put that information together and get that out to all of you.
Okay. Let's do that. Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for all the questions, and I appreciate the time this morning.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes.
The budget worksheet that was sent to you all. They'll be back to July 15th. And budget hearings are July 23rd and 2023.
I have it on my calendar.
This for when they, this.
At 1 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9
You
o'clock.
have the 1 year old.
Okay.
You didn't give it.
I think that was most of it. Okay. Okay. The claim, I guess that's it for department heads. Do claims real quick. We need to approve the claims.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second, we have a second. Call the roll.
Aaron's,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Flowers, Geiger,
Yes.
McTaggart.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Old business, new business.
I do have something. I was hoping to make the agenda, but I tried to do it online. I'm not sure if I did it or not. The electronic recycling program.
Okay.
You know, approach podium or would it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wherever.
You can probably talk from there.
I don't know if you had a camera going on or what. But I tried to get on the agenda. I'm Benny Marcier. I'm the third ward alderman for the city of Watsika and also finance chairman. And the last couple of years, the city and the county has together done the electronic recycling program, very successful. 2 years ago, I think it was like a total cost of $9,000 something. Last year was about $6,300 total cost, and we split that cost. Very popular. Everybody asks about it. I'm sure you guys get requests about it too for electronic recycling. I do have it scheduled for September the 7th at 9 o'clock. It's going to be at the same location at the Riverside parking lot. I'm asking the county to go half cost again. I'm assuming it's going to be probably close to the same cost as last year. So we split $6,300 cost. It's with the same company we did last year. They did a great job. They're very organized, very quick. They have several people that pull in and unload you quick. I said, very, very positive program. I was hoping to get approval to go split the cost with the county and Waseca City.
We should have all this in our budget, right? That's always in there, so I think it's just a matter of us just saying yes.
It comes out of the seventh fund or whatever.
Yeah.
It can be put as a separate item on the budget for next Tuesday if we have it.
Well, Benny's here, didn't, at one of the meetings, policy, was it, that you guys talked about?
I was just gonna bring
What?
that. We've been approached by a citizen of the county to institute a program, a year-round program where people could come with their electronics anytime they so chose. I believe they have a similar program up in Kankakee County that was referenced, and maybe there's one in Champaign County as well. I talked with Andy Wheeler, who's the board chairman up in Kankakee County, and he told me, yes, they have a program like that. He has expressed a willingness to come down and talk to us about that program, so our next meeting is August 1st.
Okay.
And right now, we're planning to invite him to come down and talk to us about it. It might be some value if you wanted to come to that meeting as well and hear what he has to say.
Yes.
I'm not sure that we want to have a program where it can do it all year long, but then again, there might be something that we could either dovetail in with them, or there might be some way we could do it more than once a year if we felt there was a need for that.
Are you talking about
The gentleman that
a-
brought this up, his main issue was he had some things, it's a self-serving request, because he has some things that he wants to dispose of now. And his point is if somebody, like you're gonna have it in September, well, if somebody buys a big TV set or whatever in November, they're gonna keep the old one laying around for a whole
Right.
year and then get rid of it. So that may be something that makes something like this worthwhile at least looking into.
Is he talking about like a permanent dumpster type of thing somewhere?
Well, you can't do something if there isn't supervision, or you're gonna get all kinds of garbage thrown
That's
in there
true.
as well. So that's one of the issues that has to be exploited, and the way they're doing it up in Kankakee County, they've got an arrangement with Belson Steel, and I guess there's somebody there all the time. If you came in with something, they're gonna look at what you got before you put it in
Yeah,
the
it's something, it has to be manned. You can't just leave it.
Right. So that's
They get
part
all
of
kinds of
what,
stuff.
part of what has to be taken into consideration, but again, like I said, I think it's worthwhile listening to what they have to say and what they're doing up there and seeing if there's
Absolutely be
what
interested.
options we might have,
That's been talked about also, doing it more than just once a year.
yeah.
Have you found out how much, we did twice a year, it's about half as much each time?
I've not approached the current recycler with that at all.
Might be interesting if.
This company is out of Springfield, same company we did last year. It's called BLH Computers. If you go to blhcomputers.com, yeah. The information is on there on what they take and what they don't take. blhcomputers.com is the same company we did last year. There are certain things that they won't take, so that's kind of important to know. So I just wanted to make sure the county was okay with it, split the costs again with the city. And
What do we need to do?
I'll see that it gets on the agenda for Tuesday.
Okay.
We don't need a motion here then.
Okay,
Very good.
Any other questions for?
Are there any limits to how much somebody can bring or?
No. No, it's scheduled for September the 7th. It's on a Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning. It's the county. Kits County, it would, if you guys help, it would countywide, of course. We've had people from different cities bring in trailers and stuff. This is a trailer from Milford would come in, or a trailer from Sheldon would come in, and they do the kind of, they pre-collect them and they bring it over, and
Put that in writing.
it's worked out real well.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
August 1st for me at 9 o'clock.
August the 1st, 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
No. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, thank you. Any other newer old business, got anything? Okay, if not, need a motion to. Sure. Okay, second, all in favor of adjourning? Aye.